Well, Canessa is at the crossroads of a whole bunch of artists who painted Coit Tower, and our goal with Canessa is to be sure that people who can't get here for openings can see what's going on here. Thanks to Richard Zimmerman, we're making a video which you can access and find out all the things that are happening at Canessa. I'm going to talk to John Gollinger about his current exhibit, which references back to Franklin Roosevelt, WPA, and the New Deal. And my first question for John is, how do you communicate with the electorate? You seem to have come to San Francisco out of nowhere and done a very successful job of communicating with the electorate.
Well, I mean, I think Coit Tower and the murals are something that people who live or visit San Francisco, they know about them, at least the building. And what I found in talking to people who were relatives or daughters or sons of the artists, or who knew a lot about the paintings and the murals, is that there was just a beautiful story to tell about how the building and these artworks came to be. And so I found that in telling that story to the people of San Francisco through media, press conferences and articles and events like this one, it made those stories come alive for people. And everyone who visits San Francisco, and I think certainly almost everyone who lives here, loves the place. And one of the things they love about it is the art and the support and the opportunity for artists. And nothing shows that better than the Coit Tower art story of the murals.
So your skill at communicating with the electorate made the electorate suggest to the city bureaucracy that something had to be done about upgrading these gorgeous murals.
Yeah, I mean, the Coit Tower murals were a gift of the federal government and the public's money, which paid for them originally, and we can talk more about that. But they really fell apart over the years, and the city sort of almost became hidden in plain sight, at least to some of the people in charge of managing Coit Tower. And so they became a real opportunity to mobilize people around saving something important. Once we started telling that story a few years ago and put the issue to the voters via a ballot measure, it was a very easy sell to say, Coit Tower, do you think it's worth saving or not? Do you think it's worth supporting or not? Do you think it should be around for another 80 plus years for future generations or not? And so that's what we did, and to my happiness, once we got past the political obstacles, got the voters on our side, most, if not all, the city bureaucrats and those who were resistant to change came on board. And I think it's fair to say that almost all of us are singing from the same hymn book now about Coit Tower. We all want it to be not just protected, but celebrated, and for people to really understand the details, the individual artists which are in this show, and who they were and what else they did besides even these murals.
So I watched you do this and was mystified by you, who came out of nowhere, could communicate to all the citizens and actually reverse the city's indifference toward the gorgeous work. And I've worked with several people who are very good at communicating with the body politic, the editor of Chronicle, Scott Newhall, Ansel Adams, and many more. And you mystify me. I don't know how you communicate so effectively with the public that you can reverse the downward trend of this beautiful work and make it go up again.
Well, thank you for that, but I really would say it's what I learned to do and try to do is to get out of the way, to tell the story and to not be in between the story and the people who we need to hear it and understand it and act on it. So to help, and I really feel very lucky to be San Franciscan and in a place a few years ago where I was active in the neighborhood association on Telegraph Hill, and so when the daughter of one of the artists, some of the people who gave tours at Coit Tower were feeling very upset about its treatment. I was a person that they could find to say, you're active in the neighborhood, you should do something about this. And so I did. I went. I mean, honestly, it took that motivation and looking at the murals. Once I understood the story, I fell in love with it and wanted to tell it to others. And just getting out of the way was the best advice I could give.
Surprised me by the collection of people that are in here, because I've known some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known some because I've been around a long time. But you expanded what we knew from various books on Coit Tower by digging into the histories of each person.
Yeah, I mean, I found this was, I think, it was so we're now at the 85th anniversary of the building of Coit Tower, which opened on October 8th, 1933. So October 8th, 2018 was the 85th anniversary of the building, and the murals were painted over the following year. So next year will actually be the 85th anniversary of the murals. But what I found about 4 years ago was that the story and even just who the 25 master artists who painted the murals at the tower, who they were as people, had not been told. There's about a third of them, Ralph Stackpole and Victor Arnautoff and a few others, are relatively well known. But most of them, a few of them were almost lost to history. And even in the, Masha Zakheim's great book about Coit Tower, she has a little biography on each of those artists. In a few of those, it says, Gordon Langdon as an example, she describes him as having virtually vanished off the map soon after he painted his mural, because she really couldn't find even a photo of him. And so that's an example where I had to go find the son of Gordon Langdon, who happens to be an artist himself in Point Reyes, drive up to his studio, sit with him at his table while he pulled out a folder of old family photos.
Wow.
And gave me a couple of them to borrow, and one of them is hanging on the wall here in your gallery. And there's a few others, the one Asian American artist at Coit Tower, Takeo Torada, who went by Edward. He also, there were no photos of him that I could find 4 years ago, and so a few of those folks, I felt their stories needed to be told along with the rest, and that got me going on sort of this exhibit, which is photographs and faces of each of those people, and a little bit about their story beyond Coit Tower, because in some cases before and in all cases after, they also did a lot of great work. Some of them even stopped doing art. But
so as I see this as basically original work, I also want to note that you would be delighted to have any other gallery show the show.
I would.
Which is an astonishing show.
Yeah.
And we have one other thing to mention, and that's your play. I was surprised you wrote a play about this, and the play is funny as hell. And funny. Any dramaturge of any group of thespians that is interested, we would be glad to show them your play.
Well, I'm glad to have you as my agent, Zach. The story of how the mural project came together and the moment, as you know, in history, which was the heart of the Great Depression, the very moment when labor strife in this town was reaching a breaking point, when Diego Rivera, his art was getting popular, even though he wasn't an artist at Coit Tower, he influenced and taught a number of them and worked with them. All those factors came together into an amazing story. And the more I dug into research, the more I felt it had to be told in a fun way. And so a play and theater, what better way could you tell the story of artists working in this kind of collective than on stage? And so that's why I wrote Painting Coit Tower, and we've done a couple readings here in this gallery, and hopefully that will be performed on stage for real someday soon, and maybe for years to come.
Tell us about Maxine.
Sure. Well, Maxine Albro was one of 4 women who painted at Coit Tower, up to 25 artists, lead artists, 4 of them were women. And Maxine was given one of the largest spaces at Coit Tower. Her mural called California is on the ground floor facing east. And it's just a beautiful mural of people working in the fields, picking fruit, picking flowers, doing the work of agriculture, keeping a farm alive. So it's, to me, a beautiful combination of sort of all the murals at the tower. About a half of them are more kind of the gritty, difficult, social, realist depiction of life during the Great Depression. The other half or so are sort of fun, light recreation. Maxine's mural is both, because you have people who are working, hard work. I'm sure they weren't being paid much, but also it's beautiful. It's a lovely day on the farm. Some of them are wearing sundresses and very clean overalls. I also love Maxine Albro as a really prominent example of the artist for a couple other reasons. One is she was a leader, not just of the women, but of all the artists. So we have another photo here of a day in February, I think it was Valentine's Day. All the artists went on strike for a day, and Maxine led the charge. Because a day or two earlier, Diego Rivera's amazing work in Rockefeller Center in New York City had been summarily destroyed by the Rockefellers for having subversive messages. Right. And so the artists all across the country, but certainly here, were outraged and pushed back. And one of the things they did, led by her, was go on strike. And so she read a declaration of the artists to the assembled group and led the charge. And then they got back to work. I also love a love story that occurred in Coit Tower. I'm sure there was plenty that we don't know about, but one of them was Maxine met another artist named Parker Hall, who's just behind me on the wall here, who was painting a mural upstairs. She met him around the time of this project, and they fell in love during the course of it. They got married a couple years later and went to the city of Carmel and helped found and build the Carmel Art Colony. And so Maxine Albro and Parker Hall are very well known in Carmel. Their relatives are still there, and they hosted the show a couple years ago. So her work really integrates all those things, and she did plenty of other great works, and also studied closely and worked with Diego Rivera, so that influence is clear. So she's one of my faves.
Great.